June 15th, 2019. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said. Before you do anything, if you can, head on over to iTunes, click that subscribe button, click a nice little 5-star rating and review, put a little comment in. Let me know what kind of topics do you like that we talk about here on That's What G Said. Do you like the sports talk? Are you into the TV discussion, more of the horse racing? Maybe you're a Laker or Dodger fan. Whatever you prefer, let me know, and that way I can continue to cater specifically to all of you out there and what you want. Always have to say thanks to Joey Cleveland for that intro song. Great job, Joey. We're going to get right into this episode of That's What G Said because we have quite a diverse array of topics to discuss, and there's some Saturday racing for some of the Saturday night races at Churchill, so I want to try to get this thing out as quick as possible for some of you. Let's start this with the On This Day segment, June the 15th. Let's go through some events that happened on previous June the 15th. How about back in 1215, King John signs the peace treaty known as the Magna Carta. 1667, the first fully documented human blood transfusion was actually from sheep's blood to a human boy who ended up surviving. In 1836, Arkansas becomes the 25th state of the Union. 1878, the world's first moving pictures caught on camera was done to see if all four of a horse's hooves leave the ground. In 1994, The Lion King opened in theaters. 2001, the Lakers beat the 76ers in the NBA championship, NBA finals, and then just a few years later, those same Lakers were losing to the Pistons in 2004 in the NBA championship. On this day, we're going to have a segment where we break down the Churchill Downs Pick 5, Saturday Pick 5. It's a good card over there. And you can play that Pick 5, one of the low takeout wagers at Churchill. Break down Big Little Lies with some big little thoughts. Give you a Season 2, Episode 1 recap. Kind of what to look forward to in Episode 2. MLB check-in. Quick hit on some of the news stories in baseball. Some final thoughts on the NBA Finals, what happens now with so much of this player movement, Kawhi, Klay, Durant, and it's the kind of show I like on That's What G Said, right? Where we're able to hit 4, 5, 6 different topics. Let's jump right in. I've been talking a little more boxing lately, and I've kind of been rejuvenated as of late as a boxing fan. I like the way the heavyweight division is looked now because there are some names that we know. I know Wilder. We know Anthony Joshua, who the big upset just a few weeks back. And now Tyson Fury. It's his week to be kind of in the spotlight. He'll face Tom Schwartz. Tyson Fury is a very interesting character. So if you haven't had the opportunity to look into him, a heavyweight boxer, he's 27-0-1 with 19 knockouts. He upset Vladimir Klitschko back in 2015, but he had come off a couple years battling depression and drugs and obesity, and he fought to get back towards the top of the division. And it was a fight back in December where he had a draw with Deontay Wilder, where many thought he was actually on the winning side. And that was a fight that kind of piqued my interest and kind of got me back interested in fighting after some years of really not even knowing some of the major fighters. So now we have a heavyweight division with Fury, Wilder, Anthony Joshua, and Ruiz, who just defeated Joshua. So now we have some major names that I'm curious and I'm interested in seeing where these guys are gonna line up next. So looks like Fury and Wilder will have a spring 2020 rematch, and we will just hope that fight was as good as the fight that they had in December. And we move over to GGG, Gennady Golovkin. We saw Gennady Golovkin now 39-1-1 after beating Steve Rolls last week. His lone loss and his lone draw both come to Canelo Alvarez. And now the discussion is, are we going to see GGG Canelo 3? Oscar De La Hoya, who represents Canelo, he's trying to obviously push it farther and farther away. Because remember, these are both controversial fights. The both times that GGG and Canelo fought, first in the draw and then in the loss, controversial decisions where people felt GGG actually won both, or was the most likely winner in both, yet it was a draw in one and a loss in the other. GGG has a deal that he's worked out with the new the new streaming site, so that way he was hoping this would enable him and give him a better opportunity to hook up with Canelo. So that GGG Canelo fight is the one that we all want to see. Hopefully we can get GGG Canelo 3. Also, switching focus a little bit, but this is just kind of like a quick hitter in the intro news. The Raiders have been selected for HBO's Hard Knocks, the behind-the-scenes show that documents the training camp for one of the NFL teams. So it'll document the Raiders' final training camp before they move to Las Vegas. Think about all the characters in this room. It could be explosive. Antonio Brown, Vontez Burfict, very dirty player. Antonio Brown, just vocal. Richie Incognito, he's been known for bullying and harassment and his issues with teammates and authority figures. Derek Carr, the quarterback, what's his future like? He hasn't really had a great year and a half with John Gruden, and we know John Gruden, he's not one who's afraid to speak his mind. You have a player like Ollie, who got a little bit popular from Netflix, Last Chance U. Hard Knocks premieres August the 6th. Always a good watch for you NFL fans. MLB. A little check-in through the MLB right now. Started in the NL East. The Yanks, 3-8 in their last 11. They've hit a little bit of a wall. They're starting to struggle. It tends to happen when you have a lot of injuries and when you have a lot of players who are kind of overachieving and playing a little bit above their head. So what you can bet that the Yankees are going to be very happy to see Stanton and Judge coming back next week, because Stanton just hit a home run on Friday in a minor league rehab game. You expect him to be back in the majors on Tuesday. Judge will likely take a few more games. He'll be back next weekend. They have 14 players still on the injured list. They've had 20 this year. And you really, even with their recent struggles, it's been impressive how they've been able to hold up so far with all those injuries. And now things will only get better for the Yankees, and that they've actually dropped just behind the Rays right now. Boston, who's won 3 in a row. So now Red Sox fans, can they sustain this? We've seen this from the Red Sox throughout the season quite a bit. It's like one step forward, 2 steps backwards. 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. They've won 3 in a row, but right now they're actually still behind Texas for the second wild card. So if the season were to end today, Boston would not make the playoffs. Your defending champion Red Sox would not be in the playoffs. And they're only a half a game ahead of Cleveland. They're only 17-17 at home. When you look at a lot of the numbers, like offensively, you still feel like they're going to get in, and they're the best chance to secure a wild card, because you really look at the teams who they're going to be competing against for the wild card. If they can't, make a run and win the NL East, which is still likely, they're 7 games back in the loss column, and they do have to leap 2 good teams. So I would not bet on Boston winning the NL East, but if you had to bet on Boston getting into the playoffs over, Cleveland, the White Sox, the Rangers, and the A's, it's going to be Boston battling with those teams to try to get that second wild card, most likely. Because you figure the winner of the East and then whoever finishes second between Tampa and New York right now. Obviously, we're early on, but those 2 teams, that's a 7-game lead in the loss column over the Red Sox. It's not easy to make up when you're a good team. When you're chasing another good team, it's not easy to give up that many games of a lead for a team like Tampa or the Yanks. It's tough to have any kind of a baseball discussion without talking about the Twins. Every week you check in on them and you expect the Twins are gonna, have a week where they lose 4 or 5 in a row or start to struggle, and that's just not the case. They're 24 games over 500 right now. The Orioles, the Royals, and Miami all have 24 or less wins. And Minnesota is 46-22, 24 games over 500. They have an 11-game lead in the division. Keep on trucking, Twinkies. The White Sox, got to give a shout out to them. They're up to 500 now. They're 34-34. And it's impressive because they've had really poor years from a couple of their starting pitchers that they were expecting to get a lot of production and to expecting to improve and to need a lot from. Nova and Ronaldo Lopez have been terrible. But with the stuff they're getting from Giolito, 10-1, 2.2 ERA, 0.95 whip. And then offensively, they have a lot of young talent. Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada, Lurie Garcia, Eloy Jimenez. That's a team that I could see continuing to improve as the season goes on. Remember, they were in the mix for some of the big free agents. People talked about them as opportunities for Harper, for Machado, even for some of the pitchers, and they didn't really get any of the big pieces, but they've had a good farm system the last couple of years. And you got to remember, when you're bad and you keep accumulating picks and you have young players that are getting experience, generally those players are going to improve and they're going to become, at the very least, major league, replacement level type players. Texas Rangers keep playing some good ball too. Right now they're in the playoffs. They are the second wildcard team. They just split a 4-game series with Boston, which was important for them. And they proved that, they're able to be competitive with a team that they're going to have to battle it out if they want to make the playoffs. Houston, just playing Houston ball. They're up 9.5 games in the division over Texas, but Texas is playing very well. Move to the National League. The Braves, they've won 8 in a row. Now they have a 2.5 game lead in the division. They are 20-8 since Austin Riley started playing for them. He's hitting .295 with 10 home runs and 30 RBIs. And now they have a batting lineup with Riley in it. Albies, Acuna, Freeman, Swanson, Donaldson, and Markakis. That is a strong, deep 6 or 7 hitters in their lineup. 2.5 game lead over Philly, and now a 7.5 game lead over the Mets, who are struggling. They've lost a couple in a row, and now they're 3 games under 500. The pitching staff will be the key for the Braves. They just went out and signed Dallas Keuchel. That could be huge for them. They have Mike Soroka at the top of the rotation. He's 7-1 with a 1.9 ERA and a .97 whip. Julio Teheran, who's always been a good top of the rotation guy for the Braves. He'll have some years where his numbers are not very good, even in particular the last few, but he's excellent this year. His ERA is now under 3. Max Fried, he's been hit around a little bit in his last few, but he's a very solid starter. And there are rumors out there that they could even make another move for a guy like Madison Bumgarner. The Braves are playing very good baseball right now, and the more and more I look through the National League as a fan of the Dodgers, always looking around at the opponents saying, I wonder who the Dodgers may have to face. Right now, if the playoffs were to start today, I would probably be the most afraid of the Braves. Deep lineup, and with Keuchel now, and if they're able to add one more arm at the top of that rotation, could be very tough in a short series. The Central Division, competitive as expected, and it will likely be all throughout the year, right? You have the Brewers, Cubs, and the Cardinals. They're only separated by 3 games now in the loss column. Brewers are a game up on the Cubs, and it's just back and forth because the Dodgers have beat the Cubs the last couple games. But now remember, the Cubs will have some relief coming, and I do mean relief, in Craig Kimbrell. So they should get their bullpen should be strengthened a little bit, and that was one of the weak spots for the Cubs. They're going to be right in the mix there. I'm not as high on the Cubs as some of the other teams, but I think they'll be battling it out for a wild card. This is going to be a very huge stretch coming up for the Cardinals. The Cardinals was a team that I have been very high on. They had a horrible May. And then it looked like, you're going to turn the corner. They sweep the Cubs, and then the Cubs come right back and sweep the Cardinals. But after winning a couple in a row now, they're 2 games over 500. They're 35-33. And listen to the next 20 games they have coming up. 2 with the struggling Mets. 4 with the Marlins. 3 with the Angels. 2 with Oakland. 3 with San Diego. 3 with Seattle. And 3 with the Giants. 20 games. Not one of the teams they play in the 20 games is currently in the playoffs. So over this 20-game stretch, this will be a big opportunity for the Cardinals to make up some ground, and they have to do it right now if they want to stay competitive. This is a moment where they can, pick up a couple games on both the Cubs and the Brewers. Next month, huge for the Cardinals. If the season were to end right now, it would be the Cubs versus the Phillies in the wild card. That'd be a really good wild card matchup, right? We'd see the Dodgers play the Brewers, and the Braves would play the winner of that wild card. So we'd have a Dodger-Brewer rematch of the NLCS last year. So now things starting to take shape a little bit. We will ask the same questions about the Dodgers, I think, over and over. Can they figure out a way to improve that bullpen? Other than that, they're a very well-built team. They're a team who's been in the World Series back-to-back years, and they weren't far away from winning a World Series, when you make it to a Game 7. They have a 10-game lead in the division, and they are now 6 games better than the rest of the National League. Shift the focus a little bit over to some pro wrestling. Really tough to be too excited about WWE as of late, and this is coming from someone who is always pumped up to watch a WWE show, Monday Night Raw, Tuesday Night Smackdown, the pay-per-views, but where's the storyline, the creativity, something a little different? It feels like everything is just a retread right now. We saw a Super Showdown last week, the Saudi Arabia show. There's a sloppy 50-man battle royal that was won by Mansoor, who's a local wrestler who now wrestles in NXT. That's fine. You have a big battle royal like that on a show like this. You can have a local win. I'm okay with the result. Just kind of sloppy. Never really a big fan of the battle royal when everyone's in at the same time. I prefer the Royal Rumble type one at a time. Seth Rollins beat Baron Corbin. They're going to have a rematch just next weekend at WWE Stomping Grounds. That's another thing that made this show really difficult to get too pumped up for, is that before the show's even over, they're already announcing the matches for the next show, which was 2 weeks from Super Showdown, and there's a lot of rematches and retreads. Finn Balor beat Andrade. Finn is ice cold. I mean, how could you have a character like Finn Balor be ice cold? It doesn't make sense. Finn is the demon even. Shane McMahon beat Roman Reigns. It's funny. Shane is probably the hottest character and the most over character, just because he's so disliked at the moment. His heel bad guy shtick is pretty good. At least they're kind of going all in with him. He beats Roman Reigns based, on the help by Drew McIntyre and the interference. Roman Reigns does not lose many matches, even if they're, interference, kind of gimmicky things like that. We very rarely see him lose. Now we're going to see Roman versus Drew at Stomping Grounds. So, kind of a spinoff on the same feud of the Roman versus Shane O'Mac. Randy Orton beat Triple H. Not much to say about that one. Strowman to beat Lashley. Same. Kofi beat Dolph. And now we're going to get another rematch at Stomping Grounds. The thing that would make Kofi a little bit interesting, and I don't know if we're going to get it, I don't even know if I want it, is a Big E turn. New Day turning against each other. I think in the long run that might be bad. As far as a short-term story, might inject a little something in there. And then the really unfortunate, sad match to watch at the end was Undertaker and Goldberg. 2 all-time greats, 2 legends, popular, well-known. And Goldberg was concussed right at the beginning, and the match was just ugly. It was sloppy. It was bad. And it was too long. And unfortunately, I don't think we need to see much more of The Undertaker or Goldberg. They've done, I think, all they could do. Bring them out for appearances. If you want to put them in the corner of someone, sometimes that's fine, but I just really don't need to see them in the ring anymore. Things are happening over in New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's what's great about wrestling right now, is that WWE's a little bit down, but then you have New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Elite Wrestling. There's a lot of really good wrestling out there. Now, Jon Moxley was Dean Ambrose before, is the New Japan Pro Wrestling U.S. champion. He wants to be in the G1. Jericho just lost to Okada in the championship match. He's teasing to be in the G1. Kenta, Hideo Itami, back in New Japan now. He's in the G1, and he's talking about how he wants to Moxley. So a Moxley-Kenta G1 match, or maybe a match for the U.S. title, gets my blood boiling a little bit. I like it. What's impressive about New Japan, we saw this with them from a few years ago. They lost AJ Styles, Nakamura, Gallows, and Anderson. What do? They just replenish. They go, right, they bring, Kenny Omega gets a little more shine. The Bucks get more shine. Naito gets pushed up a little bit. And then what happens? Omega, the Bucks leave. You have Cody leaves too. What do? They're able to elevate, a Jay White. In comes Moxley. Back comes Hideo Itami. You elevate Ibushi and even Naito, who's been in that mix, for a while. So they just do a great job over there at New Japan. Always interested in watching those big events. And then we have the AEW, All Elite Wrestling. Kenny Omega, the Bucks, Cody. They are going to stream their next show free on BleacherReportLive.com. Saturday, June the 29th. That is All Elite Wrestling Fighter Fest. And so the card looks like this right now. Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus the Lucha Bros and a mystery partner. So that'll be a 6-man tag. Cody versus Darby Allin. Michael Nakazawa versus Alex Jabali. Moxley versus Joey Janela. There should be some crazy spots in that match, if nothing else. Maybe a burn spot with a cigarette or something like that. A fun little 4-way with Hangman Page, Jungle Boy, Jimmy Havoc, and MJF. And then I think Sakuzi, Riho, and Nyla Rose. Looks like it's some sort of a women's. I don't think they've even announced if it's a 3-way or if it's going to be a Taz. Any other additions to that match. But those are some of the announced matches for that AEW Fighter Fest on Saturday, June the 29th. Next week, we'll do a little preview for WWE's Stomping Grounds pay-per-view, and when this one comes up in a few weeks, we'll talk some Fighter Fest. Congratulations to the Toronto Raptors in the NBA, winning their first ever NBA championship. They win 4 games to 2, winning game number 6 on the road at Golden State. Lowry, 21 points in the first half. Siakam, 26 points and 10 rebounds. Ibaka, 15 points. And you get 22 from Van Fleet. And what's amazing is when that happens for the Raptors, it doesn't even matter what you're getting from Kawhi, right? You get the 22 points from Kawhi. You get him to make the big shots and kind of settle things down when you need. But when you're getting those kind of contributions, the game was over, even though it was close and Golden State was winning late. I felt like it's like when Lowry's playing that well, when Siakam's playing that well, they're so tough to beat. And then you have Klay getting hurt. Klay had 30 points in 32 minutes. He gets hurt at the end of the third quarter, and he misses the entire fourth quarter. And, Golden State barely loses. I think it's pretty safe to say that the way Klay was playing, the way he was shooting the ball, if Klay Thompson is in the game, they win. Curry struggled. 21 points and 7 assists. He was only 3 for 11 from 3 and only 6 for 17 overall. They did get 22 from Iguodala, and they were up by 5 when Klay got hurt. They just didn't have enough in the fourth quarter without Klay, without Durant, with Looney banged up. just not getting a whole lot. They started the fourth quarter with no Klay and with no Curry on the court, which very rarely is that a recipe for success. It's amazing that how quickly a narrative will shift, right? Like, I rooted against Golden State most of the year because they're such a big bad team when they have Durant and when they have, everyone else. I'm not a huge Durant fan, but so Durant joins the already good team and they're an easy team to root against. And then Durant goes down and they had a couple other injuries, and now it's Curry and Klay and out there carrying the load, and they go back to being a very easy team to root for. What happens now? You go from being a Golden State team that just a week ago, if Kevin Durant comes back, you're going to be the favorite to win each and every year. And now Durant ruptured Achilles. He's done for an entire year. He's not going to play for 14 months or so. So we don't even know where Durant's going to sign, what's going to happen, but wherever he does sign, he will not be playing next year. Klay Thompson, I'm expecting that he comes back and returns to the Warriors, but Klay won't be able to play at least the best case scenario for Klay would be 6 months. They say 6 to 9 months, the level of play, and the level of competitive basketball that we're talking about for Klay. You think he's going to be able to sit out that kind of time and then just come right back in and jump into the playoffs or the end of the year and then into the playoffs? I would not be shocked if he doesn't play all of next year either. So now what kind of a Warriors team are you looking at? You're looking at a team with no Durant. You're looking at a team with no Klay. You're looking at a team, DeMarcus Cousins maybe goes somewhere else and gets a big contract. Do you want to sign DeMarcus Cousins long term? So what does the rest of that Golden State team look like? And what does the rest of the West look like now? Because Golden State was the big bad team in the West that everybody was scared of. They're not the same team anymore. Okay, the team that they played in the conference finals, Portland, they're a good team, but they're not a team that terrifies you. Sure, they'll get Nurkic back, and they're solid, but they're not going to be the favorite to win the West. Denver, young team, everybody coming back. I mean, they're going to have an opportunity now to be the team in the West. But when you look at the odds, in the Las Vegas Superbook, right now, the odds to win the 2019-2020 NBA championship, you know who's favored? The Los Angeles Lakers. Honestly, think about it. The West is wide open. You have a hurt LeBron coming back. They're expecting Anthony Davis trade to go down. If you're starting a team with LeBron and Anthony Davis, I'll take that over anybody else in the West, right? Houston's talked about they may blow their team up. They may try to trade Chris Paul or Capella or make some moves to try to have a different nucleus next year. But maybe they don't now. Maybe Houston looks around and they go, oh, okay. Well, Golden State's not going to be Golden State. This may be our opportunity. Because they were the second best team in the West last year. They finished fourth, but they were the second best team. I think if they're on the other side of the bracket, I think it's Houston versus Golden State in the conference final instead of in the conference semifinal. I think Houston would have defeated either Denver or Portland, whoever they had played on that side. So you look up and down, okay, the West is wide open. And when you look at the ESPN early power rankings, they did the early NBA power rankings, the top three teams all come out of the East. The Bucks, the Raptors, and the 76ers. So when the best teams are all located in the East, now the West, the best in the West isn't quite the best. We don't know what we're going to get from them, from the Warriors. And these next few weeks with all this player movement now. What happens with Kawhi? Does he stay now? And if Kawhi leaves, does Toronto, now that they've won a championship, do they just say, you know what, we've won, we're going to trade Kyle Lowry, we're going to get rid of Gasol, and we're going to build around Siakam and Anunoby? So many different things can happen. One thing that I noticed over the last few weeks just watching these basketball playoffs, Like, what makes you clutch, right? If you struggle in the first round, but then you're good in the second round, but then you struggle in the third round, then you're good in the fourth round, are you clutch? Are you clutch if you're good at the end? Like, perfect example. Let's talk about Fred VanVleet. He is one of the major reasons why the Toronto Raptors won their last two series. He might have been one of the reasons that they would have lost to Philadelphia. He was awful in that series, just terrible. So, is he a clutch player? Was he lucky that he had a bad series and they were still able to move on? Because some players don't have that luxury, right? If you're a star player, if you're the number 1 or 2 option on a team and you have a bad series, it's probably that you're going to lose that series, right? That's not the case with some of these role players. They don't have as much pressure on them. So someone like VanVleet can fly under the radar, in the Orlando series, in the Philly series, and then against Milwaukee and against Golden State, he's one of the best players on the floor. Look at his game logs and look at his stats in those first 2 rounds. He's like a completely different player. And a lot of it was just the opportunity, the chances. He kept getting them over and over again, and then he finally was able to step up. And if VanVleet doesn't play the way he played for the last, 3 weeks, Toronto doesn't win the NBA title. No matter what Kawhi and Lowry and Siakam do. That's what ends up happening is you need to be good and you need to be lucky. Things need to bounce your way. Because you can be really good and maybe the best team sometimes and you still don't win. You need to have some injury luck, right? Look at the way things broke for Toronto this year. It don't take anything away from them, but they didn't have to deal with a 100% Golden State team. Look at Golden State. Some of the years they've won, right? They didn't have to play some seasons against Kyrie and Kevin Love in the finals. Chris Paul got hurt. They didn't have to play against Chris Paul in the conference finals last year against Houston. So you can be good, but you need to be lucky too. It's hard to win because remember, everybody's trying to do the same thing. Everybody's trying to win too. So you have to be good and you have to be lucky. Lakers, the current favorite to win the NBA title next year. I'll tell you, I think it's a lot more plausible right now than I thought it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's unfortunate because the injuries are the reason why. As a fan, I always want to beat the best. I want to have my team be good and I want to have them beat the best because then I don't want to have any excuses. So it's a bummer to see what happened to Durant and Klay over the last few games because they're some of the best players in the league. And Klay, I heard Bill Simmons talking about this too. Klay in particular, like his approval rating, like everybody loves Klay. Like nobody says a bad thing about Klay, whether you're a fan of the Warriors or not. He's just the type of player that you like. He's tough. He does whatever needs to be done. Doesn't really complain a whole lot. Doesn't demand the ball a lot. He can score and get a bunch of touches. He'll play great defense. 2-way player. I'd love Klay to be a Laker someday, but don't see it happening. Let's jump on over to Churchill Downs. The Stephen Foster card. It is night racing on Churchill. So by the time this comes out, will be probably just a few hours after you hear it. Get the race number 5 on Churchill Downs Saturday evening, and it begins with the Matt win. Real quick, before we get into the handicapping, just a horse racing news. Maximum Security, the horse who crossed the wire first in the Kentucky Derby, he's going to run on Sunday at Monmouth Park. So just put a little note for yourself if you want to watch Maximum Security run. Should be the heavy favorite. There were some kind of weird rumblings about that he wasn't doing well and they had to get some blood work on him, but the blood work all came back fine. Everything seems to be good to go. So Maximum Security will be a heavy favorite when he makes his first start since the Kentucky Derby. And this will hopefully be his prep race for the Haskell. Churchill, race number 5. It is the Matt win, grade 3. And this is a pretty fun, contentious little group. From the inside, you have Limonite, who he had legitimate trouble on February the 16th and on March the 23rd. So those are the 2 races out of his 7 where he has not hit the board, where he didn't finish in the top 3. And you can put a line right through both of those. Legitimate excuse. Only real problem with Lyman, he's just a stone-cold closer. He's proven at Churchill he should save all the ground from the inside and come running. Most recently, at Churchill on May the 4th, he saved ground at the back of the pack. He was rail riding in the slop. He waited for a split. He angled out 4 wide. In between, he got shut off. Then he had to angle out and around. It was a determined drive, and he just got up. I liked the effort. No real knocks on Lymanite. I'm a little concerned that there might not be enough speed in just a small field to set up the rally that he needs. Because Knicks Go has some speed. Proverb, we could see him show speed or come from off the pace. And I think Nolo Contesto will be pretty close, but there aren't, a couple horses who we know for sure are going to be demanding the front end and have to be on the front end. I picked Lymanite 4th in here, but as mentioned, this is a fun race to handicap because I do think there are 3 or 4 legitimate contenders in this field of 7. I'm cold on Signal Man. He's run well at Churchill. And I liked him at the beginning of the year, turning from 2 to 3. I thought he would have been an interesting horse to play in the Derby. He just didn't really ever seem like he improved from age 2 to age 3. We saw him last in the Preakness. He was in the 8th, 9th, 10th spot. He was wide. He moved inside of the rail. He made his way up to within a couple lengths before tiring. Just need to see a little bit more from him. His biggest victory ever was in the Kentucky Jockey Club over this track at Churchill Downs, winning a grade 2. I feel like he has a similar style with Lymanite, but that Lymanite, I've liked what I've seen from Lymanite a little bit more this year than what I've seen from Signalman. Let's go to Nolo Contesto, who I'm going to pick on top in here. Making just his 5th career start. You go back to January, he beat a couple next out winners. One of them, Omaha Beach. Remember Omaha Beach? Yeah. Omaha Beach won 3 straight races. Maiden, then the Grade 2 Rebel, and the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. Also beat a horse who was the 8th place finisher who won a maiden 80 out of that. So Nolo Contesto beat 2 next out winners. One of them was going to be your Kentucky Derby favorite. Comes back on March the 1st, loses to Roadster. Was on the inside. It was in a small field. Roadster was on the outside. And Nolo Contesto was right behind the leader. Roadster moved. Nolo Contesto had to wait, was pinned in, and started to rally late. And when he finally got a shot, he won the battle for second up the inside. I thought it was a good effort from Nolo Contesto. And then in the Santa Anita Derby, he's behind Roadster, Game Winner, and Instagram. I mean, what's wrong with being behind those 3? Those are a couple really nice horses. I think Nolo Contesto is going to be really close to the lead in a race where, maybe he's behind Knicks Go. Proverb has shown speed, but I think Proverb will probably try to sit off the pace a little bit more today. So I think it's either Knicks Go on the lead and Nolo Contesto right behind, or maybe Joel wants to get aggressive and try to put him in front. I would prefer him just sitting right off of Knicks Go. And then we look to Knicks Go, who, he's very quick. He broke with the leaders last out. But he tried to settle off, but that's just not his. He wants to go more. He had the lead briefly. He opened up, length at the top of the lane, right before the top of the stretch at Keeneland, but he was able to just hold 4th, and he very easily could have been 6th. He was no match for the top few. The 5 is Proverb. He's a little bit interesting in here. I like his last 2 starts in that we've seen him come out of decent races, and we've seen him show different dimensions. On April the 12th, comes from off the pace, and he's behind Warriors Charge, who's 4th in the Preakness, only beaten a couple lengths. Most recently, he's behind Laughing Fox and Night Ops. Night Ops won an optional 75 at Churchill. And then Laughing Fox was 5th in the Preakness. He was only beaten 3 3/4 lengths. He was asked for speed. Proverb opened up a length and a half into the first turn. He had a half-length lead at the top of the lane. He tried hard on the inside, but he held 3rd, and he was behind 2 horses who were probably just a little bit better. And then back on that April 12th race, when he's 3rd behind Warriors Charge, The 6th place finisher came out of that race to win a stakes next out. And Proverb was dead last early. It was a fine third, chasing a big winner. So you show some speed last out. You show the ability to come from off the pace. You have some versatility. Can show multiple dimensions. I have Proverb pick second in here. I think he's got a big shot. The obvious horse to beat is Mr. Money. I think you use him in your exotics. I have him picked third. His big win in the Pat Day Mile was very impressive. And he had some sneaky decent races in February and March at the fairgrounds where he did have some trouble. I liked his Breeders' Cup Juvenile over this track. Go back to the Louisiana Derby now. Mr. Money was 5th. The 4th place finisher, Country House, finished 3rd in the Arkansas Derby and then won the Kentucky Derby. The 5th place finisher in that race was Mr. Money. He won the Pat Day Mile next out. The 8th place finisher, Hog Creek Hustle. He was 2nd in the Pat Day Mile behind Mr. Money. And then he was winner of the Grade 1 Woody Stevens. The 9th place finisher, War of Will, had his trouble in the Kentucky Derby and then won the Preakness. And then Limonite, he was the next out winner. So that Louisiana Derby has come back a very, very strong and a very live race. Armistice Day rounds out the field. To me, just looks a little bit overmatched in this group. The way I have the 5th race at Churchill Downs pegged, and it's the start of your pick 5. 3, 5, 6, 1 with Nolo Contesto on top of Proverb, on top of Mr. Money, on top of Limonite. 3, 5, 6, 1. I'm actually going to play 2 different pick 5 tickets that I'll give you the wagers. One of them I'm going to single Nolo Contesto. The other one I'm going to use those 4. I'm going to go one with the single of Nolo Contesto to start, and the other one will go 1, 3, 5, 6. Incredibly difficult race in the 6th race at Churchill. It is the Grade 2 Wise Dan. Many directions to go. Not a lot to say about either the 2 inside horses. Don't think that they fit well in here. The 3 First Premio, I'm going to pick second. I really liked his race last out. He tracked on the inside. He was third. He was 3 lengths off. He had second inside right before the wire, and he got nailed late on the wire. There were a bunch of horses. They were all battling out for the place, and he got nipped, but he very easily could have been second, and he was chasing a lone speed winner that day, Sam Reap, who is the 6, who was 35-1. I'm going to be against Sam Reap in this spot because he was a pace factor who had everything go his own way, and I don't think that'll be the case in here. It looks like Get Western has some early speed. It looks like, I don't think Holiday Stone is going to be too far out of it. We don't think Noble Commander is going to be far out of it at all either. And then even towards the outside, I wouldn't be shocked to see Bourbon Resolution have to show a little speed to get into and secure a good spot. So I just don't see this race setting up well for Siem Reap. The 4 is Hot Springs. Question marks on him. His race behind Bricks and Mortar 2 back was not bad, and then he's another one who was just chasing lone speed, so it's a race you can probably give him an excuse for and give him a chance to bounce back in here. I have like Hot Springs and Holiday Stone, the 4, 5, and 11. I have them all tiered together and kind of right under my top picks in here because they're just major question marks to me. Holiday Stone now changing barns in a very good barn with new connections. Simreep not huge on. I'm against It's in the Post in here because It's in the Post is just better. I've had this horse in fantasy horse racing leagues a couple different times, and he's in a very honest gelding, but he's better going longer. I think this is just a total prep for him to get ready. He's better at 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles. Like 1 1/8 miles is even a little bit short for him. So I think It's in the Post will just be using this to kind of set up and maybe get him into a good fitness level for his next start. Noble Commander, first time on the grass, looks like some speed. Top selection is going to be Inspector Lindley. Got a bad ride last time out from Lescano. Not a fan of the ride. So he breaks well, and he has the perfect opportunity to tuck in. He breaks from post 10. Plenty of opportunity to tuck in and save ground. Instead, he goes wide into the turn. Then he gets caught up in the 2-3 path, and he's in between horses. it's just unnecessary. If he just tucks in, he's able to save ground. I think it's going to be a totally different result. You can't give up that kind of ground on the grass. It's just not like dirt racing. You can't go wide and still sustain some sort of rally. It like never ever happens. And now we get a jock switch. Ortiz is aboard. I'm just expecting a different trip today for Inspector Lindley. I did not like that ride at all. We're going to put him on top, Inspector Lindley, and I'll bet him at 5-1 anything to win on the 9 horse. The 10's a wild card, El Picaro. Coming into the Correa's barn for the first time, you do get Javier to jump aboard, but this is a barn that does not do very well off the bench. They're just 1 for 13 with first timers, with their trainer, with foreign shippers, and they're only 3 for 46. The barn is off a plus 180 day layoff. So I generally see this barn improve when their horses have a race or two under their belt off the bench. March to the Arch. That May 4th race, behind Bricks and Mortar, is okay. He's in between horses mid-pack. He gets up to within just a few lengths off. Not bad. Facing top company. And I kind of have him tiered, as I mentioned, in like the second flight of horses. March to the Arch. I have admission office in the first flight. He was inside. He was at the back of the pack. He was in tight. He was bumped around early on, but he was traveling well, and he stayed to the inside. He split horses, and then he went back to the rail. It was a strong second behind Catholic Boy. I think he's a must-play, and a must-include in your exotics in here. Column Road, the 13, it seems like he wants a lot farther than this. So I just think he might be a horse, an underneath horse. Yes, he was a winner, just 2 back at the mile. But I just don't think can beat a very good group at this trip. I think he wants more. Bourbon Resolution is worth an inclusion. First time on the grass. His lone sib won the only turf start. He hooked a tough group on the dirt last time out in the Ali Sheba. We've seen what his big races on the dirt are capable of. And now, if he can transfer that form over to the green, there are not any monsters in here. His class on the dirt should absolutely be able to compete with this group. So I think he's very worthy of any, wager or anything in your exotics. I don't want him less than 8-1 though, because of the post. He might not get an easy trip. At least he has some tactical speed to where he could, show some of that speed and not have to get hooked so wide early on. I have this race 9, 3, 14, 12. And then if you want to go a little deeper, I have the 4, the 5, and the 11 after them. The Fleur-de-Lis, couple nice fillies and mares in here. I don't think Skeptic from the rail will be able to compete with the top few. I do on paper, to me, this does just look like, well, I guess I will give Go Google Yourself a shot to hit the board. I would not be surprised. She likes Churchill Downs. She's improving a little bit. She really doesn't have many poor races. If you just toss the grass race, it's hard to really knock what she's done as of late. She can pick up pieces. So I would not be shocked to see Go Google Yourself hit the board in here. I would be a little surprised if she won, because she would have to beat 3 pretty quality animals in order to do so. The 2, She's a Julie. Should be some inside speed. She flashed that speed last time out, but she was able to take back. She sat a close-up 4th. She was behind horses. She angles to the 2 path in the stretch. Has to work a little bit to get by Secret Spice late, but she gets the grade 1 victory in the La Troyenne right over this track at Churchill Downs. She will have to deal with a tough foe right to her outside in Elate, and then she'll also have to deal with Blue Prize, who should improve second off the bench. So Elate was away slowly last we saw her in the Apple Blossom, saves ground on the inside, angled out, but Midnight Bisou had already gotten the jump on her. Elate has been defeated both times this year by Midnight Bisou, but when she is good, she is extremely good, and I think her class and her A game is better than what She's a Julie or Blue Prize would be able to put forward. But I do think we're going to get the best effort that we can expect from Blue Prize, and that will make me have Blue Prize as my slight top selection. I'll put her over Elate just ever so slightly, so I'll have 5 over 3 in here. Blue Prize, same barn that we just mentioned in the previous race, that is not good off the bench. So whereas Blue Prize was a little bit short, making her first start from November to May, I don't think that will be the case this time. She's going to be better with this race under her belt. She was actually favored over She's a Julie. She was in between horses. She was on the heels early on. She shuffled back a little bit. Then she moved through and around. But when she loomed up, you could tell she just didn't quite have that same punch, and she flattened out. I think she has a lot more punch in here. Blue Prize, the top selection, will put the 5 over the 3. 8th race is the Stephen Foster, now grade 2. The way that I have this race, the inside 3, Thirst for Life was a horse who made me some money on Churchill Downs undercard weekend for Derby. I liked him in that spot, though, because I thought the mile was the perfect spot for him. I think that the mile and 1/8 is not necessarily what he wants. Rated R, Superstar, Runaway Ghost, not a whole lot on either one of them that I love in this spot. Seeking the Soul is a very good animal. He's a grade 1 winner over this track. He likes Churchill Downs. He's proven at the trip, and you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to make a late rally. If somebody in here doesn't show up with a good effort, Seeking the Soul will win the race. Al-Katam is looking for his 3rd in a row. He's stepping up. And then you have Gift Box. What do you do with Gift Box? I'm going to play against him. He has won 2 of his last 3 of his last 4, and he looked very impressive when he won the Santa Anita Handicap in the San Antonio. But when you break those races down a little bit, he wins the San Antonio Handicap, and he beats McKenzie going 1.25 miles. That's just farther than where McKenzie is best. So I'm not, he beats McKenzie at the 1.25 miles, beating a course that isn't quite as good going that far. Loses to Vino Rosso last time out. He was battling it out early on. I really don't have any knocks on Gift Box. I just like a couple others in here more, and I don't want to take a short price on him. So I wouldn't, again, if you're playing exactas, try supers and stuff like that, I'm not going to talk you off using him in your exotics, but on the win end, in the pick 5, I'll take a swing against him. The way that I approach this race, I would not, I have no issues with Tenfold or King Zachary. I do think Tenfold likes Pimlico. I thought he was primed to run a big one last time out, so I would not be surprised to see him regress a little bit off that effort. And then King Zachary, he's run well at Churchill, and he's a horse who should improve with the extra furlong in here. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him complete some of the bottoms of the exotics. Let's see if he can take a step forward now. He was your winner of the Matt win last year. I'm going to put the 9 Tom's Dietot on top. He was a runner-up behind McKenzie in the Ali Sheba. That was a fine race, but what I really like about him, he's always teased of talent. He's always had these times where he shows up with a really big effort. Now he's finally strung some races together. This is going to be the 5th race of his since November. And that was just not the case. He was always the type of horse who would have a race and then a layoff, maybe 1 or 2, another race, and then a layoff. I think we're finally going to see this horse have a little fitness, have a little bit more bottom, and he will be forwardly placed in here, and anything around 4 or 5 to 1 seems very fair on Tom's Dietot. Quip will be in my top 4. Liked Quip a little bit last year as a 3-year-old. He got a graded stakes win as a 4-year-old in the Oaklawn Handicap, sat off, and then won a determined stretch battle, and that was going 1 1/8 miles, and that was in the slop for a very good conditioner. I think Quip should sit a nice trip in here. And then to close things out with Yoshida, I think from a pure class standpoint, he should be one of the better older horses in training this year and in the second half of the season. And I think he will be running late. Little worried that he might need a start for his best, but we'll use him with 9, 4, 10, 12. The way I have the 8th race. 9, 4, 10, 12. And in the 9th at Churchill Downs, it is the Regret closing leg of that pick 5 sequence that'll give you a couple tickets for in just a moment. The 9 horse is the play to me. Fortunate Girl. I don't think there's a ton of speed in here. I think the 1 Winter Sunset will sit. I think the 7 Bella Laura has a little bit of tactical speed. And I think the 11, same thing can be said. Princess Carolina, little tactical speed. Fortunate Girl wants firm turf. So the key for her is to make sure the turf is firm. If it's good, if it's yielding, if it's not firm, I don't think she's worth the win wager, and I don't think she's going to run as well. But if she gets firm turf, she could be a little sneaky because she had such a poor performance last time out. I think they're going to get aggressive with her and just send her on the front end. She could be very tough to run down if she can sneak away. So we'll put Fortunate Girl on top. The 1 Winter Sunset be the second selection. Gets away from Concrete Rose. Should save all the ground and come running. I'm going to go second off the short little break. So 9-1. The 6 Hungry Kitten. Blinks went on. Maybe that was the key to get her a little bit more focused. She's a stone cold closer. She comes out of a productive race, but she finally was able to we know she has a nice turn of foot, but you're able to put it all together. And when I see a race like that, a lot of times I'll attribute it to the equipment change. And I think the blinkers might have been the real key for Hungry Kitten. The 4, Varenka, I think tough to leave her out. She got beat up by Newspaper of Record a couple times in 2018. And then in her first start as a 3-year-old, Varenka beat Maidens and did it pretty easily. She would be tough to keep out of some of the exotics. So 9, 1, 6, 4. And then if you're looking for one more, the 11, Princess Carolina, who got the win after dropping out of a couple graded stakes races. And I mean, really no knocks on her. I'm worried about the post. She could get hooked a little bit wide with her running style. She might be in between. So I think they might have to either decide if they want to go or take back. And I don't know if she's quite quick enough to go with Fortunate Girl if they both want to show some speed. So the Churchill Downs, pick 5, starts in that 5th race. Make sure to play the pick 5. I always want to play the races with a low takeout. To be honest, I don't play a lot of Churchill Downs because their takeout is so high. Generally on just the Derby week and maybe a few times throughout the year. So I'll just take advantage of the lower pick 5 here, and we'll play pick 5, 2 different pick 5 ticket approaches. First one, starting in the 5th race. 1, 3, 5, 6 with 3, 9, 12, 14. So 1, 3, 5, 6. Limonite, Nolo Contesto, Proverb, Mr. Money with 3, 9, 12, 14. First Premio, Inspector Lindley, Admission Office, Bourbon Resolution. Single the 5 in the pick 5. That's Blue Prize. So we single the 5 in the 3rd leg. 4, 9, 10, 12 in the Stephen Foster. We'll use Seeking the Soul, Tom's the Atot, Quip, and Yoshida. And then close things out with the 1, 4, 6, 9. That's Winter Sunset, Varenka, Hungry Kitten, and Fortunate Girl. 1, 3, 5, 6 with 3, 9, 12, 14 with 5 with 4, 9, 10, 12 with 1, 4, 6, 9. Second approach to the pick 5 at Churchill. We'll single in the 5th race right off the bat with Nolo Contesto. Single to 3. Then in race number 6, go very deep. We're going to go 3, 4, 5, 9, 11, 12, 14. So we'll use that second tier of horses that I had mentioned to Holiday Stone, Hot Springs, and March to the Arch. In the 7th race, which is the Fleur de Lis, we'll use 2 in there. We're going to go with the 3 and the 5. So Elate and Blue Prize, we'll double up there and use 3 and 5. In the 8th race, 4, 9, 10, 12, Seeking the Soul, Tom's the Atot, Quip, and Yoshida. And then we'll close things out with the 1, 6, 9 there. Winter Sunset, Hungry Kitten, and Fortunate Girl. Couple individual races to play. The 6th race, the number 9, Inspector Lindley. Make a win wager on that one at 5-1. And in the 9th race, the number 9, Fortunate Girl, 8-1 or so. If we can get the firm turf, I think worthy of a few bucks to win. Let's close things out with some big little thoughts. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you are not watching the show Big Little Lies, then you probably won't be interested in this final segment, or maybe you haven't watched all the way through. I'm going to give you spoilers. We're going to talk about what just happened in Season 2, Episode 1. So this show takes place in Monterey, California, and what we see, the start of Episode 1 of Season 2, Bonnie, the Zoe Kravitz character, who we find out that she has pushed Perry to his death. She killed somebody at the end of the last season in an attempt to save one of her friends. The women that we all see at the very beginning, the 5 women characters that are known as the Monterey 5, Bonnie, Celeste, Renata, Madeline, and Jane, which Bonnie is Zoe Kravitz, Celeste Nicole Kidman, Renata is Laura Dern, Madeline is Reese Witherspoon, and Jane is Shailene Woodley. And we see how all the women are struggling with what has happened. The man, Perry, who they killed at the end of last season, was Nicole Kidman's husband, and he was a bad guy. He was a rapist, and he'd raped Jane. He had beat Nicole Kidman's character, Celeste, repeatedly, and was just not a good person. But she's having a tough time with it. She's still having nightmares. We see the Renata, Laura Dern character. She seems like she's living it up. There's a part where she's got a photo shoot, a Women in Power photo shoot. She's in bright pink. It's My House is playing. She's singing it. She makes sure to let the teacher, her daughter's new teacher, know that her daughter has an IQ of 152. She's given him the full court press, letting him know that she got picked on last year and that she got assaulted. The way that everybody is tied together, all of these characters, are by their children. Their children all go to school together, and this is such a good soap opera. It's like the most well-written and well-acted soap opera you've ever seen. Meryl Streep is now in the mix, and she is just stealing every scene. She is the mother of Perry, who has been killed. So she's the mother-in-law of Celeste, the Nicole Kidman character. Meryl Streep's son, Meryl Streep is named Mary Lewis. Her son has just died. And so she is staying in town, helping the grieving widow raise the kids. But she notices that something is off. She can tell that Nicole Kidman, Celeste, and that all these women are hiding something about her son's death, and that it may not have been just an accident. There's an interaction that Meryl Streep character has with Reese Witherspoon, which is just great. She says, I find little people to be untrustworthy. And these women that are protecting this secret, it starts to eat away at them little by little, we can see, and it's really getting to them. Flash to the character of Jane, who's now working at the aquarium. Kind of a weird, she's talking about octopus sex, and it seems like she has a new friend and a new possible love interest that may come into the fray, someone from work who lets her know that she is referred to as one of the Monterey 5. Like always, we see the Reese Witherspoon character fighting with her daughter. They're fighting now about college and whether or not her daughter wants to go to college. She doesn't. She wants to go work for some startup. She's very humanitarian. This is the very same daughter who wanted to auction off her virginity. And I think she does a great job because she annoys the hell out of me. So the actress is just doing a great job because every time she comes on, I'm like, oh God, this girl. The Nicole Kidman character Celeste has now set up a trust fund for Jane's son, Ziggy. Ziggy was the son of rape. So that was one of the reasons why the women all kind of together realized what Perry had done. Perry not only who beat his wife, he had raped Jane, and that was, I think, one of the things that really pushed and kind of put the puzzle piece of everything together here at the end of season 1. Jane has mentioned that she won't cash the checks that Celeste is giving her. Ever since Perry's death, they set up a trust for Ziggy, and she says it's rape money. She hasn't cashed the checks yet. And, I think it's a battle between Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman, because Meryl Streep does a good job, and you're obviously always focused on her, but Nicole Kidman is really good in this series because there's a lot of inner monologue with her, a lot of her scenes are just her by herself, where she's having, visions or old nightmares, or she's having a memory, maybe even a good memory about her now dead husband. The dinner scene towards the end of the episode, where the Celeste's two kids are kind of arguing. One of the kids stabs the other kid with a fork and doesn't think it's a big deal. And then Mary Louise, the Meryl Streep character, she's talking to the kids when they're all grieving at the table, and she screams, Meryl Streep. She lets out this scream talking about how angry she is and why her son is dead. And it's scary. And at the moment she looks and she interacts with Nicole Kidman and she says, "Don't you feel angry?" And she can tell the way Celeste is reacting that something is off, and that Celeste isn't necessarily grieving the way that somebody who just lost a husband should be or would be grieving. One of the last things we see in the episode is when Celeste wakes up from a nightmare screaming in her sleep. And Mary Louise, the Meryl Streep character, comes in to console her. And Celeste, screams when she wakes up in that nightmare about murder. And Meryl Streep asks, "Who are we planning to kill?" So these dreams of, the Monterey Five killing Perry are getting to the women one at a time in different ways. And in the previews for the next few episodes, we see that now Mary Louise is going to hang around for a while and help Celeste with the kids, because she knows things are off, and she is really perceptive in picking things up one at a time. I look forward to more interactions with Meryl Streep and Reese Witherspoon. Those are great. And if you haven't watched the show, or you're just listening and it sounds interesting or not, go check it out. I would very highly recommend it. Worth your watch. Big Little Lies. We'll do some Big Little Thoughts, and each week now we'll post. I'll end up posting for some of your thoughts, what you think will happen, predictions for each of the next episodes moving forward. So thank you, folks, for tuning in to That's What G Said. If you can, make sure to get to iTunes, stamp a little 5-star rating and review, subscribe on that, share the episodes around with any of your friends. If your friends like Big Little Lies, let them know that we're going to have a little Big Little Lies recaps, and we'll be able to share some of your thoughts. If you have friends that like NBA or baseball, or anytime we talk about any of the subjects, big favor to ask if you can help share it around and help tag or spread the word to any of your other friends. That's going to do it, folks. I will be talking to you again next week. Joey, take it away.